Yeah. Oh yeah, I should. But I might do that. We could example structure, but we realize that that's very useful. So you're not coming to them. Here. You're doing it on Zoom.
I will now call to order the May 18th, 2023 meeting of the Salem Historic Landmarks Commission. Will the recorder please take roll call? Commissioner Zimmerman? Here. Commissioner Kirkman?
Here.
Commissioner Fuller?
Here.
Commissioner Inman?
Here.
Commissioner Morris? Here. Commissioner Ponce?
Here.
And Commissioner Strauss?
Here.
Commissioner Timbrook is absent excused. We have four. The commission will now hear testimony from the public concerning items not on the agenda. Is there anyone interested in speaking at this time? And we will now consider, if none, looks like we will now consider the approval of meeting minutes from the April meeting. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes from April 20th.
Second.
Okay, we have first from Commissioner Fuller and a second from Commissioner Inman. Are there any corrections?
First from Commissioner Morris.
Oh, excuse me, sorry.
That one correct.
If there are no corrections, may we have a vote on the minutes, please? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, minutes pass. And now we will go to our next item on the agenda, number 5, which is I will now open the public hearing for historic review case number HIS 23-06 or 1015 High Street Southeast. With the staff, would the recorder please read the hearing procedure statement into the record? This is a public hearing to consider case number HIS 23-06 for property located at 1015 High Street Southeast. The criteria applicable to this hearing are listed in Salem Revised Code, Chapter 230.025D, porches, and 230.025 L site features. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Historic Landmarks Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the hearings officer on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Historic Landmarks Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days. Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts that any commissioner would like to declare at this time? Hearing none, may we now have the staff presentation?
Thank you. Kimberly Fitzgerald, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. I'd like to enter the staff report as attachments and all public testimony into the public record. So tonight you're considering a proposed alteration at 1015 High Street Northeast. And this building is just across from Bush's Pasture Park and is contributing to the Gavy Hill Bush's Pasture Park National Register Historic District. Here's a street view of the house and the front entry, which is the general area that you're going to be considering today. This is a historic photo of the house. Its historic name is the Cash Hat House. It was constructed in 1925 and is a 1.5-story craftsman bungalow. And it was originally constructed by Dr. Carl and his wife Cleo Cashad, who lived in the residence until 1942. And he has a very interesting history. I always like to look into the folks that built these. He was a graduate of Willamette, and he served as a physician for Salem schools. He was also a physician for the state prison and the Southern Pacific Railroad, and he was also for a time the city of Salem's health officer. And in your packet, you can see an excerpt of the position he had to take during the pandemic. He had to set policy for school kids, and it just rang a little bit true, given what we all recently went through. So tonight, you're actually considering, I'm going to go through these section by section. So the first part of the proposal is related to alterations on the front porch. So if you recall the picture from a few minutes ago, the original front porch steps were actually concrete. Right now they're flagstone, so they're not original to the historic structure. There's also a metal hand railing down the center, which isn't original either. So the proposal is to replace the existing non-original flagstone porch steps with concrete and replace that metal handrail with wooden handrail with square spindles that reflect the design of the porch rail. So then the second portion of the proposal has to do with the site features itself. So the front walkway, replacing the existing non-original walkway with new concrete pavers, which are going to be edged with a narrow brick paver border, and front walkway steps, replacing the existing non-original flagstone steps with concrete to match the porch steps. And there's also a metal handrail in this location, so removing that. And the applicant and I also followed up with the Building and Safety Division, and there's not a handrail required in this location. Here's some more detailed plans and materials. So again, the materials for the porch include concrete and custom wood railings. For the front walkway, the proposed materials include a cast-on product, which is a concrete wet cast product that's injected into a mold to create a dimensional stone look. And then the brick pavers on the exterior are going to form a border. I'm going to go through the applicable design standards now, one at a time. Then the first section related to porches. So this is from Salem Revised Code 230025D for porches. And the applicant, as I mentioned, is proposing to replace the existing non-original flagstone porch with concrete. Historic photos of the house confirm the original porch steps were concrete, so staff recommends the Landmarks Commission find that the proposed building materials are going to be duplicating to the greatest degree possible the appearance of the original porch stairs. And design, the overall design that will reproduce the appearance of the original porch. They're going to be in the same location, same general form. The non-original handrail will be replaced with a custom designed wooden handrail, which isn't original, but it does reflect the design of the porch rail, and it is needed in this location to meet the building. So site features, moving on to that section. So as I mentioned, the non-original step material leading from the sidewalk up to the walkway is going to be replaced with concrete, and the non-original walkway will be replaced with the poured concrete pavers. And the overall design of the walkway steps will be restored and the metal handrail removed. The non-original walkway is going to be replaced within the existing walkway footprint. It's not going to exactly replicate what was original, but it is a compatible walkway design. Therefore, staff recommends the Landmarks Commission find that SRC 230025L has been met in this proposal. We've received no general public comment. There's email and support from the Stan Historic Preservation Parks and Gardens Committee. And they also forwarded the several historic photos which were included in your packet. As I mentioned, the Building and Safety Division indicated that the removal of the handrail is allowed, and additionally, building permits are required for those changes. The removal of the handrail and the replacement of the steps and the walkway, the planning department and public works and fire did not have any concerns with this. And there's no public agency comments. So based on the findings in the staff report, staff recommends the Landmarks Commission approve the proposal. That concludes the staff.
Thank you, Kimberly. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff?
I have a couple questions.
Commissioner Strauss?
Do we know when the flagstone was installed on the stairs?
That's a good question because the
Okay.
I'm not certain of the exact.
Then, a second question is what is the walkway made of now?
It's a combination of broken concrete, as I understand it, and I think clarification can be provided by the applicant.
Okay, perfect.
Do we have any other comments? Okay, I will now call for the applicant's testimony. Please state your name and address for the record and or your business address if representing the applicant. And please note that your testimony is limited to 15 minutes.
My name is Karen Erebus, and I'm here with my husband Ed Erebus, we're the owners of the property at 1015 High Street. I do not have any testimony, but I would be happy to answer any questions.
I have some questions.
Commissioner Stroud?
The same two questions. Do you know when the flagstone that's there now was originally installed?
It was the previous owner installed it, and we believe it was sometime in the 1990s.
So 1990, so pretty recent.
Yeah.
And then what is the walkway made of right now?
The walkway consists of interlocking concrete pavers with a broken concrete border.
Okay, so it's gonna be, so the design that you're proposing with the cast concrete is gonna be pretty similar to what's there now?
Yeah, they'll follow the exact same shape. It will just look a little bit more like larger pieces of flagstone as opposed to the small pavers that are there now.
Okay, great, but paver to paper is
Yeah.
the same kind of stuff. Okay, great, thank you, I appreciate it.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here representing the neighborhood association? Seeing none, I will now call for other testimony. And on the testimony sheet, I only see the applicant. So is there anyone else who would like to testify that did not sign up before the meeting? And do commissioners have any additional questions for staff? All right, I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony will be accepted at this time without formally reopening the hearing. I will now call for a motion.
I move to approve as recommended.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Strauss and a second by Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Strauss, to your motion.
Yeah, I think that this is a good way to meet the needs of the owner of the house while also honoring the style of this house. I think in particular, I appreciate that the new railing is going to be reflecting the railing style that's existing there now. I appreciate that attention to detail. So looks like it'll be good.
Commissioner Inman.
I agree. I think that this is a simple and appropriate way to restore original features, and I'm glad to see them.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners want to comment? I'll just say that I'm also in favor of this this motion. I think it's great to see these beautiful homes kind of get that originality back, even if it's something just for the porch. I always appreciate the dedication of homeowners to put in that extra effort to kind of get things back to the way they were originally with these beautiful homes. So I appreciate the applicant's efforts on this project. And I will now call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the changes to 1015 High Street in the southeast, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Salem Centennial sign. And let's start with the staff presentation. Kimberly?
Thanks for your patience. Okay, so yes, we're here tonight to consider the process for replacing this centennial sign. So I'm going to begin by giving quite a bit of background so that you can kind of understand how we got here and where we're at. So back in 2020, as many of you recall, we adopted our update of our historic preservation plan. And back in January, we adopted a work plan. And bear with me, this next slide is crazy. So this is our work plan for 2020. And you can see that there's quite a number of things that we've already been doing this year. And they're very connected to that contact period, the Methodist missionary contact period. But the one we're really focusing on here is goal 1, which is kind of hidden here by the menu, but it's about improving public outreach and education, and in particular, strategy 2, developing interpretation and coordinating educational programming about Salem's diverse local history. And in particular, the action item that this falls under is making sure that we're developing interpretation and programming around Salem's underrepresented communities, and our Indigenous history is definitely one of those that we haven't really done a great job up to now doing that interpretation. So under that umbrella, we're needing to update Salem's centennial sign. And Jennifer Keller wasn't able to attend this meeting, but they have set aside funding for this project for this upcoming fiscal year. So that's in place. I just want to also point out on our work plan this year, things that we've already done that kind of fit in with this, is we did just recently finish our archaeological project at the parsonage, which is part of our larger project related to the overall multiple property National Register documentation of those Methodist era mission sites. I also wanted to share with you, just generally in the vicinity of the centennial sign, some of the interpretive panels and racks that have been installed over the last, I guess, 5 years or so. So the Jason Lee House panel, I have a picture of it here. It's actually just installed today with the salvaged brick that we're able to recover in 2020 from that archaeological investigation. There's a Mill Creek panel, just to the south of Mill Creek that is going to be installed in the next few weeks. I've got a picture of that as well, on the new Max building. There's the Mill Race wrap, which Kirsten is familiar with, I think, around a utility box. And then there's a Trade Networks panel, Santan, California, interpretive panel on the southern walkway there, south of Mill Creek on the north end of the police facility. And here's some pictures of those. I know it's hard to read, but so the Trade Networks one is up on the upper right. The Jason Lee one, you can see the salvage bricks there between the posts, and the picture there below is actually from our archaeological unit. And then on the right is the panel, is the content for the panel that's going to be installed on the MAPS building. So just to point out, we're trying to be very conscious about not just reflecting that perspective when doing this interpretation as we're moving forward. This is just a map to give you some idea of the sites that we have identified. There's 7 in the Salem area that we're really focusing on as part of this overarching contact period. We're looking at developing, like I mentioned, the National Register NPD. This is part of our CLG grant that we're moving forward with this year. But there's also, they're not all on the map. There's quite a few more that are in Oregon that of course SHPO would like us to include, but it's a much larger context. And I don't know that we have capacity to do that, but we're looking at developing an overarching interpretive plan for all of these sites. So I just want to mention that because it does matter if it's this site, this sign fits in with all of that. So this is the location of the sign that we're discussing today. For those of you that know where Boone's Treasury is, the McMillan's, that's the building right in the little triangle area in the center. And the sign is, you know, the big circle is right there. It's right where High Street turns into Broadway. So a little bit about the background and history. This has been an interesting journey just to figure out who owned the sign, who designed it, who developed the content. Initially, we thought it was a beaver board, but so the beaver on it. But the Oregon Travel Information Council didn't have any record of it. So I worked with Kylie at Heritage Center, and she looked through their old records. And so we discovered that it was actually a joint project between the Marion County Historical Society, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Marion County Centennial Commission as part of Oregon's Centennial Celebration in 1959. And then it's been maintained by the city of Salem since 1960. And then it was restored in 2006 by the city and Salem Town volunteers. What's interesting though, and you'll see this in the next slide, and I'm sorry I don't have a better picture of the Champoeg State Park beaver board. It looks almost precisely like that one at Champoeg, which is in the Travel Information Council's inventory. So, and they don't have an answer. We don't have an answer, but they did say, so I talked to Beth Den at the Heritage Commission, and they would be very excited if we could sponsor either a site-specific beaver board in this location, or they are actually looking for a regional beaver board as well, because they don't have either of those in Salem right now. So I'm going to kind of go through the options that are available, and then I'll leave it to y'all to make your decision. So this is the Oregon Travel Information Council kind of process. I'm going to kind of go through it first, just so you have a sense of what that involves. They have criteria, kind of like we have for stuff and things relating to content, accuracy. They have an application, and as Beth explained it to me, the city, if you're sponsoring it, would propose the language, which then we would submit to OTIC staff, and then their committee would review it. And if it checks out and meets all their criteria, they check it off and approve it and move forward. And then they have standard design, and of course, they have basically two types. One is about $3,000, the other is about $7,000. So that they told me that because of supply issues and that they aren't making that big sign like we currently have. If we wanted to replace it, we would have to choose between two options that they have, but moving forward, they would take the responsibility for maintaining it and for designing it, installing it and maintaining it, and then they would also add it to the statewide marker map. And do whatever functions they do through OTIC for their markers. So that's just kind of it in a nutshell for the OTIC process. So option one is just replacing the existing sign, replicating the design and material with new language. And I have on here, and I think it was in your packets, a sample of some proposed alternative language that was developed by David Lewis at the request of Jim Shefty. I think they're here today to speak to that if they want, but just to kind of show how we could address that, how to try to decolonize what we already have here on this sign, which isn't appropriate currently. I have not been able to get good answers to my questions about cost and availability of material, but certainly can follow up on that if that is the choice that the Landmarks Commission wants us to move forward with that. Option two is to choose the site-specific marker and utilize the process through OTIC. As I went over before, the costs are right up there in the process. And I've got pictures of some of their examples there. So you can see that there's a type that just has the words on it, type that has a combination of pictures and maps. But they generally are like you're seeing with the two vertical, it's a more narrow. And then option three would be to sponsor a new regional marker. And that, I didn't get the cost for that. You can see that they look a little bit different. They're a little bit larger. You have kind of 4 sub-panels to work with, and you're looking at more of a regional approach. I did include the minutes for our tribal roundtable. So this issue was brought to our monthly tribal roundtable this month, where we had representatives from the Grand Ronde and the Silettes. I've got pictures of our MOU up here just because I love to show these the great examples. And this is our framework that we have for consultation on things like this. So just to refresh your memory, we do meet monthly with our colleagues at the tribes to discuss not just it's similar to like you do the design review, just specific cases, but also issues like this around interpretation. And they've weighed in on those other markers that I shared with you for the parent. So their recommendation, they had slightly different recommendations. So the representative from the Grand Ronde felt comfortable with either option 1 or option 2. But the Silettes felt pretty strongly about going with option 2 because they felt it would be better to be part of that larger integrated OTIC marker effort. And both of them did not like option 3 for this location, and neither of them thought doing nothing was so. Okay, so in sum, and I'm gonna go through these one more time and then I'm gonna stop sharing. So the option 1 would be to replace the existing sign, just replicating existing design and material with new language. Option 2 would be to sponsor a new site-specific marker through OTIC. Option 3, sponsor a new regional marker through OTIC, and option 4, no action. So that concludes my stuff.
Thank you, Kimberly. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Commissioner Kerdeman.
So option 1, 2, and 3 are ultimately replacing the sign. Would it be a sign replacement in place, or do you have the option to put the sign somewhere else?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, in place. Is that your question? Yes,
Yeah, so all 3 options
in place,
in place.
correct. Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Strauss.
Do we have any idea when the Beaver Board program started? Kind of a weird thing,
I
yeah.
have some notes. So Beth said they were, she was sort of unclear, the 1940s was the earliest they had records of. Mhm.
It seems weird to me, the reason I asked that question is it just seems kind of weird to me that this isn't a Beaver Board to begin with.
Mhm.
Like, why would the city have wanted to erect that? That's their own thing.
It's a good question.
I also have another question. Do we know what's gonna happen to the old sign? Is it just gonna be discarded or?
So in my brief discussions with Beth Den, and she contacted the Salem Town volunteers, they would, when we take it down, they would take the materials as salvage to help if they needed to repair other signs that are just like this one that's not a Beaver Board. Yeah. Is the materials this.
Are there any other questions? Okay, Commissioner Potts.
Thank you, yes. Question, was there any input?
Yes, yeah, so they did discuss that. They felt it would be important to do a site-specific sign in this exact location, but they actually felt it would be beneficial to work with OTIC on a regional marker, perhaps over on the Capitol grounds or the Willamette Heritage Center, a place where more people can come.
Commissioner Furman.
Just kind of following up on Commissioner Strauss's question. So the sign would be salvaged, but can we ensure that the actual language part of the sign is going to be salvaged and not like put up in some inappropriate location?
I feel like that's something for us to decide. What Beth said is that if they were going to use it for salvage, they would figure out a way to remove the writing. They wouldn't use to use the wood.
Yeah, I just wanted to express concern that it would be taken and put up somewhere in some government official's office or public spaces. Remember, yeah, or a restaurant. Yeah, remember the sign? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, Commissioner Fuller this time.
So will you go over with me again? It's pretty clear who will be doing the writing for option 1, who will be doing the writing for option 2.
The same. So the difference between option 1 and option 2 is not the writing.
Right.
The difference is that with option 2, that narrative would be submitted to OTIC and then they would review it very similar. You don't review content, but like you just did, they review the proposal against their applicable criteria.
Okay.
And part of our proposal would be to submit essentially how applicants submit to us demonstrating how our narrative meets their criteria.
Okay. Thank you.
And if it doesn't, then they would work with us and give feedback about, well, could you try this or could you tweak this? And if we wanted pictures or maps, then it would be same sort of thing. Is this accurate? Is it relevant? Does it meet the goal?
Okay, cool.
Commissioner Strauss.
Who would be responsible for maintenance in option 1 or 2?
Option 2, OTIC would be. Option 1, the city would be.
Do we know how much money it's cost to maintain the sign currently?
That would be, yeah, Jennifer Keller's not here today. I know there was a significant cost in 2006. I know that there's an ongoing cost because it gets tagged pretty frequently and it needs to be cleaned. I don't know what the number is.
I have a quick question. So you mentioned that the existing sign is a city resource, correct? So it would be within our purview to state that if it's being removed for salvage, that they clean it down.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Got another one. What's our timeline looking like between, taking down the old sign and putting up a new one? Like, how fast can we take down the old, and how we have to have something to replace it immediately? Or can it wait a little bit while this process gets?
Well, so yeah, Jennifer Keller and Mylan Davis were both at the tribal roundtable. And that was asked, and they can take it down as soon as we give direction to take it down. And regarding the process, the timeline to get one made, it depends on which option you pick. It depends on supplies, it depends on finding people.
Okay.
I think it's more predictable using the OTIC process because they have a process in place. But I don't have an answer.
Any other questions? Commissioner Strauss?
Sorry, I have another question. Would it be possible to document the language, maybe just like add the text of it to this report and file it somewhere, just so there's a record of it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. I think that would be important just for, history's sake, I guess.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you. We also have testimony on the action item this evening. The first person on the list is Jim Shepke. Please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission. Two things. First of all, I just want to thank you for moving forward on this. It's been of concern to me. I've lived in Salem since 1986. And a long time ago, I was frankly appalled by this sign. Not only the language, but the condition of it, which actually, it doesn't look as good as this. I don't know when this picture was taken, but if you've been there recently, it doesn't look as good. And so I want to thank you. I want to thank Kimberly, everybody, Tyler Pine, it's some great work. Secondly, I want to advocate very, very strongly for option one, and I'll tell you why. I think the sign itself that's been there for 63 years, this is a long time, is in itself a historic marker that you should be concerned about. And I like it. I love the sign. I hate the text. I love the sign. It's a roadside marker. And many of you, my age, remember roadside markers were a big thing, like in the 50s and 60s, to be able to drive your car and pull over and read a sign and not have to get out of your car. That was a thing. And that's what this was designed as. It has like a pull out that you can pull your car in. And the OITC sign design is not that at all. In fact, I'm not even sure you could read it from your car. You'd have to get out. So I'm charmed by roadside markers in general. And this is a roadside marker. And I think it needs to be replaced with an exact replica to respect the historic character of the sign itself. So that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see someone to be able to recreate the sign perfectly with the beaver and everything, just so, but with different text. And I think that's very important. I'm concerned if we turn it over to OITC, it's going to take longer, maybe. They may not like our text, which is concerned to me. And I love the process to come up with the text. David and I asked David actually to just rough something out, and he did it in an hour or two, sent it to me. And we're not pushing for that text. We just did it as a sample. We realized there'd have to be a very inclusive process to come up with the text, and we support that. The other thing David and I have talked about is maybe, because there's not that many words in the big sign, can't say that much, but it'd be very cool to have like a QR code on the sign that people could snap, maybe even from their car, and go to a website that would give a much fuller account, accounting of the history. So you could have both. You could have the roadside thing. You could also have something that, people could go to get more information. So I really hope you'll choose option one. I don't think that sign should be taken, should be removed and replaced with something that's totally different. I think that would be not in keeping with our historic preservation values. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Ellen Eisenberg on the list to speak today. If you could provide your name and address as well, please.
Sure, I'm Ellen Eisenberg, I live at 592 Stagecoach Way Southeast. And I'm a historian at Willamette University, where I've taught for over 30 years now. And this is my first visit to this particular body. I'm excited to be here and see the process. Although I've looked at issues like this in a kind of broader regional and national way, over the last year, I've reoriented a lot of what I do toward local history and public representation of history, and that's led me to work more closely in collaboration with folks like Kimberly and others at the state level, and also at some of the local nonprofits, and I'm developing classes in that area. And so it's from that context that I wasn't sure I was going to speak tonight, but I was encouraged to do so. I don't want to express a particular preference between options 1 and option 2, because we don't have a lot of expertise in the signage in particular and so on, and my default would be to defer to the tribe's preferences. But I did just want to share a little bit of broader perspective and in terms of the importance of removing the sign and replacing it. And I come at that, one of the things I shared with Kimberly was that I grew up in the Washington DC area. We went to the Smithsonian all the time when I was growing up. And at that time, and when I say this to people now, they're appalled, as am I, but at that time, we would go to the Museum of American History, where we would see like the First Lady's ball gowns and the American history presentation. But if you wanted to see anything about Native Americans, you had to go to the museum that was next to it. This is before the creation of the Museum of the Native American Museum, American Indian Museum. You had to go to the Museum of Natural History, where you would see like the rocks and minerals and like dioramas with the animals from different continents, and indigenous peoples were placed there. And the message was really that, number one, almost that indigenous people were no longer here, and also that they weren't part of American history, that they were literally segregated out and placed in this very different kind of context. And I think, we've come a ways since those days, and it's exciting to see some of the new curriculum in public school and so on, but signs like this send exactly that message that was sent by that segregation of those exhibits and the discounting of Native American experiences and perspectives. And so I just wanted to share that as a kind of general perspective, that I'm very much in support of replacement of this. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have David Lewis on the list to speak tonight. You can also provide your name and address, please.
Sure, David Lewis, 1194 37th Place, Northeast Salem. I'm a assistant professor at OSU in anthropology and Native studies, and lived in Salem since about 1972, off and on. Grew up in here and to school systems here, and graduated in McKay in '83, so it's my 40th anniversary this year. I'm still in Salem. So I don't know what that means, but anyway, so yeah, I've been here a long time. And, you know, I'm a Tribal River Grand Ron too. And, you know, when I grew up here in Oregon, there wasn't a lot of history of Native peoples, was in the schools, you know, Lewis Clark and Oregon Trail was Native history. And so that's a problem. That's been a problem for a long, long time. And, you know, my dad some years ago set me on a road to become kind of a tribal historian in the area. And so I worked for a while at the Grand Ron Tribe as the chair of the culture department there. Got a lot of research off the ground, and then I did my own research and went on teaching in anthropology, and then writing a lot of histories, researching and writing a lot of histories. So I have a blog site called History Research, and I've been actually doing a lot of work on Salem history, because some of the tribes that came to Grand Ron, Chemeketa tribes actually were from here, from the waterfront down here, lived in the area, and there's quite a few sites in Salem that they relate to. Some of the earliest records of Salem were actually called Chemeketa, include the Methodists working with the Native peoples in the area. So we've always been here, we've always been a part of this history, and yet not represented in the history of Salem, not represented in our school systems, not represented much at all in the city until maybe the last couple of years in terms of signage. You know, our own representation has been Chemeketa, a few places on the streets, and you know, Chemawa Indian School, things like that. So that's clearly a problem. And so a couple of years ago, I did an exhibit, the Art Association here in town at the Bush Park, and it's called Native Salem. It got pretty good reviews from people that were in the area, because I was revealing to everybody this history they hadn't seen ever about people that were in Salem, about events and things that happened in Salem, like Chief Winneby was a big famous Native person who came back to Salem a lot, and we're friends with everybody in town. They were having wild parties at Gambling by the railroad tracks and everything. It was buried over here underneath an oak tree by the old Bush Elementary School, and these are all histories that most people didn't know, because nobody had gone, and what I could tell, gone back and read that history and brought those histories forward from their first written 1850s, 1860s, and 70s newspapers and other places. So I've been bringing those things forward in my blog, various articles, including understanding, you know, why the Methodists moved here, the first buildings they put up. And so, so when Jim asked me to look at this this design, I've seen before, and like many of the Beaver signs, it doesn't really represent Native history at all, as if we're sort of not even here, not even part of history. And it's pretty clear there are a good number of Native people living in Salem. We're part of your history, we've always been part of the history here, and yet we're not represented in the sign. We were here before first pioneers, first settlers. So, and you know, and I have grandfathers and great grandfathers and uncles who came to Salem and lived here for years. One of them, in fact, was a janitor at the state capitol, and he stayed there for working there for like 10 years while he was watching the proceedings of the state capitol regarding termination of tribes in the 1950s. So we have a very long history. A lot of people in my tribe live here still, in West Salem, other places. And I just want to say that I think that Salem can do better, should do better in terms of signage, sort of its recognition of Native peoples, history of Native peoples here, and hope it does better with the plans you have in place. I'm actually in favor of option one, because it really keeps more local control. Because you really, once you hand it off to a large organization, you really don't know what they're going to do. You have less control than if you keep it local. I like the idea of having a beaver sign, like in the old days, here that represents Native peoples too. So, and that's not one of their options. The other point I want to make regarding Jim's point was, you really can't see from the road, and that area is not a really well trafficked area. You won't walk that street very much. So if you had a sign with like small type, nobody's gonna read it. So you may want a sign with larger types, so you can actually read it. see people that stop or stop there is for history and stuff, so. Anyway, those are my comments, you know, I'm willing to help all I can, if you guys contact me, I'm willing to help with the research that we're writing, and my piece is only contribution, should what can happen, and I hope this goes a good way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And do we have a motion?
Can I ask a question? I know this is the formal public hearing or,
This is just an action item.
okay, great. Can I ask a question of staff?
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, Virginia would like to speak if that's okay.
Yes.
She didn't say.
So.
Good evening.
Can you give us your name and address?
My name is Virginia Green, and I live on the Klamath River in Granite neighborhood, and I've been here for 20 years. I expect you all have been here longer than I have, but I have been researching the history of Salem and I've done some publications, history like Ellen does, or any of the other people there. But I do have several walking tours, and one of them does walk by this sign, and I do respect the people that put it up 63 years ago. But I want to make one strong point here about research in Salem history. I learned more about the Native Americans in this area from David Lewis tonight than I have seen or heard in 20 years that I've been researching. That isn't that sad? That sign just skips right from the missionaries into the population that came after them. After they got land grants, 3 of those missionaries got land grants of a square mile as if nobody lived here, and they were just coming in unoccupied land. It's a shame to have that tremendous part of our history completely ignored. I am for option 1, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Strauss.
Thank you. Kimberly, I have a question. On the PowerPoint, there was like, one of the styles of beaver boards was like the kind of old fashioned style for the official beaver board. Is that available, or is it only the sort of newer stuff?
Right, so the more expensive one, the 7,500 one, is similar to the older style, and it has the larger, the wooden, yes.
Okay, cool.
But it's not exactly like the one that's,
It's smaller, but it's
smaller,
similar
but
size.
it's similar in style, but not as big.
Great, thank you. That's helpful.
Does anybody else have any additional questions for staff? Commissioner Kerman.
If option 1 was approved, does the city have the funds to replace the sign?
So again, we don't know, what and again, I'm paraphrasing Jennifer Teller, so they have set aside the funding, for the larger sign OTIC, because that's the number we had. Like I mentioned, for option 1, I don't have a cost estimate. I've not been able to get a clear answer about whether we could do a true in-kind replacement. And when I spoke to Beth, she said one of the reasons they changed what they're doing now is because it's difficult to find that size of wood now.
Commissioner Fox.
So to follow up on that point, I was just wondering if 60 plus years, that sign's been in place, certainly maintenance as an issue during this time. If location's right and that the style is right, and if things will be worked out, different material can be selected or chosen. That looks
Well, that's like a you guys question, so. Going to our design standards, in-kind replacement is wood for wood. But again, it's, you know, the TIC sign is definitely made of a more durable material, which then makes it easier to. I would ask that.
Yes.
I stare at you guys.
We have questions.
Any other questions? Commissioner Inman?
Yes, and do you have any idea what species of wood that sign is made from? Could it be Port Orford cedar?
Yeah. Yes,
It is Port Orford cedar?
that's what my notes say,
Oh, interesting.
but I would need to double check that. Yeah, Port Orford cedar. Well, the new markers are made with Port Orford cedar. So I can't speak to what, I didn't ask that specific question.
I think I have a source for cedar. So I just thought I would throw that out there.
Commissioner Morris?
So can you clarify for me, just, I want to be really clear, so if it's an OTIC sign, they have a listing for all of their locations, so they kind of map everything, or consolidated. If it is not through them, they do not carry that, it is not part of that database.
Correct.
And is there, how do they promote that? Like, what is that?
If it was listed?
Yes, it's
part of-
listed, what, do they have
Yeah, if you go, like I went on their website and there's an interactive map, you can, like if you're a tourist, you can design a little route to go to all the
Okay.
markers.
all right, that's good to know.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Commissioner Furman?
I motion that the commission move and approve option 1, which is replace the marker replicating the existing design and material above the new language.
Is there a second?
Second,
Commissioner Potts seconds it. Commissioner Furman, your motion?
Yeah, I want to first say thank you very much for the testimony. It did bring something that was kind of troubling me on. I was leaning more towards option 2, however, the simplicity and the kind of natural look of the sign does stand out compared to a lot of the interpretive signage that we've been doing lately. While photographs and everything are great, they are difficult to see unless you walk up to it. Sometimes traffic gets backed up over by booms and people can sit and read the sign from their car. In addition, it does make it so our language is short and precise. I do like the QR idea, so we have a little bit more flexibility. Initially, I was all for, Oregon Travel Information Council taking this on. However, I do feel like the city of Salem has a good process to kind of control its own interpretive history. And while we might not be on an online database through OTI, we do have Travel Salem, Salem information, we have walking tours, we have brochures, we have things that we can publicize the sign through. And kind of have a little bit of a pride that it's Salem sign. It represents everybody, but at the same time, it's not Salem hiring out for someone else. Additionally, some of the newer looking signs, they wear out very quickly, and they have that kind of plexiglass that gets scratched up. And I say that after helping with a couple of interpretive signs. And I feel like if people maybe will appreciate the more natural signage that's just has that simplistic look to it and just kind of gets to the point, and it's not as busy and distracting with a bunch of pictures. And this is also coming from someone who loves pictures. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ponce.
No further comments.
Commissioner Inman.
Yes, I'd like to offer a couple of friendly amendments to the motion. First, that if the wood is salvaged, that the current text be removed so that when the boards are reused, that text doesn't become a government sign or a restaurant sign or, you know, somebody's basement sign, just that the text be sanded out. And second, that the language on the current sign be documented in this staff report so that there's a record of it. And I do agree with the notion that the sign in itself is an historic sign. It's over 50 years old, so I think that option one is a good direction to go, but I don't think that we resolved exactly how the text would be rewritten, and I think that should go to a qualified committee to work on and then brought back to the commission.
Thank you. I think we would need to vote on the first motion before we can amend it. No? Okay, we don't. Okay. Does anybody else have any other comments regarding the motion? Okay, Commissioner Roars?
So I can't support the motion, given that there's, you know, substantial concern from the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz, and quite honestly, you know, if we're trying to create a restorative history, we should be respectful of their wishes. I appreciate these signs. I grew up with these signs. I grew up in the Midwest and moved out here and been all over the West, and very familiar with these signs. And I also find them attractive and historical. I can also see from a Confederated Tribes perspective that these are, you know, consistently providing an incorrect history. And so I can see how they would be, even in the style of this sign, as much as I like it from a history that I'm familiar with, but that's an incorrect history. So as it stands, I think also just having the added outreach that OTIC provides is really important. But again, just in deference to what Tribal Roundtable brought to bear, I would only be in favor of option two.
Commissioner Fuller?
Similarly, I would say to consider in option two versus option one, there's some key differences that I'm seeing. And one of them is, you know, I will not discount the value of images in multimedia. I see where you're coming from, Commissioner Kirkman. And especially given its ability to reach people who may not be able to read very well. Having things there that can draw in people with different reading levels, different audiences, things like that. And I think one of the biggest issues that I have with this sign, physically speaking, is similar to problems that I had back when I was working in Texas with historical markers there, which are cast like in metal and pressed in, is that we run into situations just like this where we have language that just doesn't work anymore. We have things that don't function anymore, and they become very, very difficult to change, right? If we had other kinds of signage, for instance, from OTIC that had panels that can be more easily replaced, text that could be changed, QR codes that can be updated to new websites, things like that. I think that would offer us a much more dynamic option, on top, instead of this, which is once made. We're here having this discussion about it, you know, and, it might be simpler in the process to have something that can be changed repeatedly and can be, reachable, by more people. Whether or not we're walking or driving or whatever your age language might be, is a caution that I have about option one, and why I think option two might be more of a way to go for us.
Are there any other comments, Commissioner Strauss?
I think I am generally in support of option one. I think that having this older style of sign is okay in this location, especially because there are so many other interpretive panels nearby about Indigenous history, about the foundation of the mission near that site that could sort of supplement this. And so I think that the point that it's mostly seen by people driving by, it's well taken. And so I would be supportive of this older style. I don't think that I am completely against option two, if we can work with the state organizations for that older style of sign, which seems like it would be an option. So maybe that would be a good compromise if we have some concerns about longevity or if we have some concerns about maintenance. I think my biggest hesitation when it comes to option one is potential cost, since it doesn't seem like we know how much it would be, how much, we don't really know how much maintenance is. It seems like maintenance has been an issue in the past for the sign, hence this big restoration they did in 2006. So I think generally I am in support of option one, though I'm not sure if I have enough information to support it fully. So I might recommend that we instead ask staff to provide more information about what the logistics of option one would be before we vote on a certain option.
Commissioner Inman?
Yes, I have a question for staff. Does Oregon Travel Information Council categorically reject using or adapting this historical sign?
Well, they don't own it, so it's our choice. But I can, to Commissioner Strauss's suggestion, I can follow up with OTIC staff and ask that more directly. And I can also follow up with the further questions about if we would like to adaptively reuse the existing sign. Could their Salem Town takers assist with that, and what the cost might be?
I think that might be a worthwhile inquiry, because I mean, I'm looking at this, and I did go to the wonderful museum display that David Lewis put together, and my recollection is that there were some really wonderful maps. Correct. There were some very edifying maps in that exhibit, and if, for example, this sign, which is larger than the OTIC signs that I saw examples of, there could be room for 4 panels on this, in this existing sign that doesn't need any new permits or anything, because it's existing. So there could be ways to design it so that it provides interpretive information and links and new text, and it is readable. I think that there might be a way to do that if OTIC would consider working with us on adaptation of this historic sign.
I can follow up.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I hear none. Motion at hand was Commissioner Kurtman moved to approve option one with a second by Commissioner Potts. And all in favor of that, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Okay.
Nay.
Okay, the motion fails. Commissioner Inman, Morris, Strauss, and Fuller against, and Commissioners Potts, Kirkman, and Zimmerman for. Is there another motion to be made?
I move that we ask staff to prepare a recommendation for what the logistics of option one would be that we can consider maybe at our next meeting, including costs, what our projected maintenance would be. This is too long of a motion. Kind of come at me. What are you specific? I move that staff prepare a report about the logistics of option one that we can review at our next meeting.
Is there a second to Commissioner Strauss's motion?
Can I make a quick amendment? Can we,
No.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion to get a report about the details about the sign from staff. And second by Commissioner Morris. Commissioner Strauss, do you have any comments on your motion?
Yeah, I just think if we are going to pursue option one, which seems to be what the community would like, so I want to make sure that we're thorough about investigating the costs of that option and what it might look like for us. We retain sort of authority over the sign.
Thank you, Commissioner Morris.
I'm interested in hearing more information from staff. I'm particularly interested in also understanding if what can be reused in that sign, and if there's a way for OTIC to actually utilize the existing sign within their system. I'd also be interested in understanding if this is going to go back to the tribal roundtable.
Yes, it will go back to their, the June tribal roundtable, which is before this meeting. So as I did with this, report, I will include their comments as well.
Any other comments? Commissioner Kirkman?
I very much like the motion because I feel like it's almost a due diligence on this alternative of making sure that we've really looked into it. And then additionally, if we do find out more information and we realize option one maybe is not in our favor, perhaps we could work with OTI on preserving the look and the feel of the sign based on this reporting. So I think the report might show that, hey, we really want the sign to kind of maintain this look. Or we would like the option to have that, and maybe OTI would be a little bit more willing to work with us on sign design, with the understanding that they have support both through written reports and letters, but also maybe volunteer work and kind of help subsidize some of that cost. But then also have the perks of maintenance not being on the city. So I do appreciate this motion.
Any other comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to get a logistics report by staff regarding option one, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. And thank you too for all speakers.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, our next item of business for action items is photo contest and historic preservation month awards. Zach.
Welcome, thank you all. So, this year, I should have prepared my stats. I think we had 22 submissions, that's not 100% sure. We had only two youth submissions, and the rest were all adult. The 4 categories that we had were historic exteriors, historic interiors, streetscapes, landscapes, and features, which are ones that we've had for years. And then a new or a revised one, we used to do selfies and pet portraits, and we kind of expanded that to portraits and animal photos, so not exclusively selfies or pets. And so these are we sent out a poll, almost all of you voted, one did not, but that's fine. So I took those and I put the top votes. Some of them were pretty outstanding, like almost everyone voted for it. So second or third place wasn't very many votes, but I included them because we were second or third or tied for second. But we'll go ahead and move into those. So for historic exterior, adult category, we got votes for Cluckin for over 100 years, and that received a majority of the votes. And then tied for second place were Pretty in Pink, which is the middle photo there, and Hear the Bells. So those were both tied for second, but not both of their votes combined are not the same number of votes as Cluckin for over 100 years. So you did have a simple majority there. We can, in the past, we've done a called vote where you say which of the photos on screen you'd like to vote for. But in this case, it was a simple majority for Cluckin, so you could also just do a regular vote like you normally do, where you just all say aye at the same time if someone wanted to motion for that one. But it's also time for your discussion if you'd like to discuss these photos. Anyone wanted to defend what they voted for, now would be the time to do so.
Thanks, Zach. Commissioner Strauss.
I voted for Cluckin for over 100 years because this is one of my favorite buildings in town. And I also think it doesn't get a lot of recognition. So it's really nice to see kind of like, I feel like we see a lot of buildings of the Capitol, obviously, because it's very beautiful, or a lot of photos of the Capitol, but it's nice to see something kind of like it's a little bit of less recognition, and also this kind of interesting, like sort of side take of the building I really appreciate. I also really like Hear the Bells. It's nice to see some mid-century buildings get some love. I love mid-century, but I would vote for over 100 years.
Commissioner Bonds.
I really do like them, but I thought that just. The others are great. Store, but it's not quite as unique as the Cluckin in detail.
Anybody else want to comment on the photos?
So when I look at these, I am drawn into the sensory experience of each one. And there's something about those bells are like the most glamorous things that I have ever heard. Like I walk by that building at 5 o'clock, it just like makes no sense. And so that recalls to me whenever I see that one. And like, I don't know about y'all, but like there's something about the chicken building that has a smell to it that like I can't unsmell. And every time I see this building in any way, shape, or form, it's like a combination of chickens and state fair and fry booths that are next to it that just like kill me about it. So hence I shot for Pretty in Pink, which I know we have often like done a lot of things in the Capitol, but like as far as the feeling that it elicits in me as a viewer is one of home and a bit of serenity that these other two don't have. So I respect all your decisions, but that chicken hut smells like chickens.
Anybody else want to comment on these photos? Commissioner Critterman?
I did almost immediately vote for Clucking for over 100 years because I was like, oh, Kirsten is gonna love this one. And I wanted to make sure it showed up in the meeting today. That's.
Anybody else want to speak to the photos?
I'll jump in. I think, maybe just because of the smell of the chickens, and because I grew up in a pretty rural area, I mean, it just, it almost looks like if somebody was trying to do a weird fast food place, 90 years ago, they would have put something like that up there for like a hot chicken sandwich. But I thought that the light modulation was great, the kind of peeling paint, it really tells a very strong story. I did love Hear the Bells, because I also thought It's a Tree Modern really needs to have its day, but the chickens were just too much.
Yeah, I liked the chicken, the poultry building as well. Almost, 25 years ago, I used to work at the fairgrounds in the summer when I was in college, where there'd be nobody there. It was just this ghost town. I worked at the floral department. And around that time, they were getting ready to demolish the old stadium where they do horse racing and those kind of things. And one of the other buildings they were, talking about demolishing then was also the poultry building. And for a few years, they just had poultry and all of the other ducks and things like that, and just cages in the Oak Grove, which is kind of the north end of the fairgrounds, for a number of years as they were determining what to do with the building. Apparently the bricks were hollow bricks. And so that was one of the dangers that they had with the building, and it might collapse. And so they had to spend a lot of money when they decided to preserve it. Was that when you walk in there now, you see all of the cables and stuff. So that just kind of keeps things up, and they were able to use the building again. And so I was really heartened by the fact that they were able to save this one building, that had been around for, at that time, closing in on, 80 to 90 years, and here it is today, 100 years later. And I think that photo is on the south end of the building, which used to be the original front entrance, kind of like where the natural resources stuff is, where they have the trees and the waterfalls and things like that. But I loved the chickens up on the top, and the fact that they're still around, just the quality of the work of that building when they put it in. It has endured all these years, and you don't see photos really of some of those kind of buildings anymore, especially the ones on the fairgrounds. So I was just really drawn to that photo, just with detail, like was mentioned before, and just the history of that building. It's still around, even though it's only used 2 weeks a year, and it's not really gotten all the attention it needs to keep it in tip-top shape, but it's still here. So that's why I voted for that photo. So should we just vote again, or we stick with
I just wanted to say one quick thing. I think this demonstrates how important the title is.
So what would be the best route that we take on this one, Zach? Vote again, or since we already had a majority already selecting this photo initially?
It would probably be faster to do a roll call vote,
Okay.
just because then you don't have to have someone make a motion and then second it.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do a roll call. All those in favor of Clucking Grover, 100 years, oh, that's right. Let's go, roll call. Sorry, Zach. Confusing my own notes.
I don't have my roll sheet in front of me, so I don't. I'll just go with Commissioner Strauss,
I vote for Clucking for over 100 years.
Commissioner Fuller,
I vote for Purdue.
Commissioner Zimmerman,
Clucking.
Commissioner Kirby, Commissioner Ponce, Commissioner Inman,
Clucking.
and Commissioner Morris.
Clucking will be awarded.
So our next category is historic and interiors. We just have the one submission, learning about history in history. So you are welcome to discuss. And since there is only one, we will take a motion about whether or not to award it.
I want to say on this one, I really enjoyed the text, the little description that was included on it. It was ultimately, learning history in a beautiful historic building, and So I just, it really spoke to me because it is a really cool looking building, and it was one of the most exciting things for me when I was trying to figure out what to major in college, that the coolest building on campus was the building that my department was in, that I was going towards. So that was just overwhelmingly exciting. So it was fun to see that text of that youth being like, oh my gosh, I get to study history in this cool building, this historic building. And also, Zach, I want to say too that I do really appreciate the do not award option. I know that came up a few years ago, but it's just nice to see that option too.
Any other comments? Commissioner Strauss?
Yeah, I think this is a great photo. This is one of my favorite buildings in town. I also tower, so I have a lot of nostalgia for this building as well. So I would like to award the photo. Even though there's only one entry.
Any other comments? I'll say that I think it's a beautiful photo, even though there's only one entry for this option. I like the angle of the photo. It's not like a straight on photo, so you kind of get a nice perspective with it. You got the beautiful blue sky behind it, a nice red brick. You got the shadows on the building, green grass. You know, I think it just really stands out. The photographer, I think, did a great job just in just showing the building, you know, kind of as a neat angle rather than just straight on like you see a lot of times with photos. So I would be in favor of awarding the photo with this, awarding the award in this case to this photo. Yeah, Commissioner Potts.
I just support the award, just to encourage participation in the category.
All right, sounds like we're ready for a roll call.
That's what you can just do a motion since it's.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of awarding the youth photo to awarding the award to the photo on display, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right.
So our next category is historic interiors. We did have multiple votes for this, but every single person voted for Civic Cathedral. So I presume that will remain the vote. But if anyone would like to discuss it, now it's time.
It's nice to see our newest historic resource being recognized. So I love the Civic Center. I think it's a really unique, cool building. And I love to see sort of the sweeping staircase, which is one of the most significant features of the building being featured in this photo. So it's a great photo. I love it.
Any other comments?
I really enjoyed the angle of this, and it was it felt good on the heart because not too long ago, just maybe a few weeks, a month ago or so, I was walking around downtown and overheard a couple of folks bashing brutalist architecture and how terrible it is and how like silly it is that the city is taking so much resources and time to preserve it and recognize it, and it's just ugly. And so this photo, I was like, yeah. One win for brutalist architecture.
Any other comments? Commissioner
I
Morris?
think this is the only time where I've seen the horribly UV damaged skylights look really great. They actually add a lot to this photo. And now I'm actually thinking about maybe they should keep. Yeah.
I never thought of that. You're absolutely right. It's amazing.
Any other questions? Comments? Yeah, I think it almost looks like stained glass, the way that the panels look up there, which, you know, I guess you could focus on that as just kind of a unique aspect of our civic center. But yeah, I like the photo. Just one of the reasons is because, yeah, we have discussed it a lot in recent months, you know, in terms of getting its designation and such. But yeah, it's definitely unique, and looking up at the panels, I think makes it, you know, kind of a different picture than some of the ones we've seen there. So I would support it. Shall we do another roll call?
There's only the one, so you can
Okay,
make a motion.
all right, we have a motion to approve the historic interiors of Leonard Civic Cathedral.
So moved.
All right, thank you. Second.
A second.
All right, all those in favor of the motion by Mr. Hinman to award the historic interiors win to Civic Cathedral, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you.
And then our next one, this one is the adults for historic landscape, streetscape and features. We had, again, this was we had one in first place and then two that tied for second, but still don't have the number of votes as first place. So on the left is Nature Without Us, in the middle is Gotham City, Oregon, and on the right is Section 504 Sit-in. Gotham City, Oregon did get the majority of the votes and does have a simple majority, but the other two were tied for second. Over to you.
All right, does anyone want to speak to the photos, their preference on any of these?
I absolutely do. I am so in love with all of these photos. It was really, really difficult for me to pick. It's still difficult for me to say one or the other, but it was hard for me to pass up the rusty car, in the dirt and trees. Maybe it's just a bias of my profession, but the Gotham City, Oregon, I did not recognize that as Salem, so that was kind of cool. And then again, on the far right, just seeing that red ADA ramp not be yellow, just really hit home and made me proud. That's the one I voted for. So. But anyways, that's your job. Yeah, your job. But I was just really impressed with the submissions on this one. They're drastically different, and I just really, really appreciate it. It was so hard to pick one. So.
Yeah, it was nice. We didn't have like 3 train bridges or something. Does anybody else want to comment on the options here?
I can take a comment. I voted for Gotham City, just because I think that this photo in particular is really beautiful with the light work. You can kind of see the vehicles moving through town. I think that photo was really cool. But I do want to say that the Section 504 sit-in is really unique perspective. I feel like you never see photos from the ground taken like that. So I really appreciated that photo. And of course the car is cool too, but I did love the Gotham City, Oregon photo.
Anybody else?
I mean, I love me an old rusty dead thing, and I love me the ground. But y'all, it's got motion, it's got light, it's got a pyramidal structure in the middle, gargoyles on it. It's got Jupiter, or whatever planet that is, for Saturn, yeah, maybe we're looking west, and there's a full-on other world out there looking back at it. It's my vote is with Gotham City, Oregon, all the way. Maybe if the car photo was a wider angle, or had a little bit more dynamism in it, or there was a critter, but this landscape in the middle really does it for me. It's gorgeous, it's print worthy, in my opinion.
Midterm comments.
So I looked at these and it took me a while to focus on the other two. Gotham was my pick because it just jumps out of extraction. And I was like, it's that same, it's metropolitan setting. It's got it's my book.
I'll say that as an architect, of course, I would for Gotham City, but this was deep enough in the pack too, that I have to say that when it came up, I was so shocked by the professionalism. I just couldn't really even get past that. It's a really, really beautiful shot. And it captures that building so well. And I think the title of sort of trying to reposition Salem as Gotham City was kind of great, and really taking that beautiful historic kind of building to be the center point of the, much more active urban environment. So I loved it.
All right, it looks like maybe we can do the roll call with this one since we've got such a close numbers game here.
So I'll go around and you say the title that you'd like to vote for. So Commissioner Strauss,
Gotham City, Oregon.
Commissioner Floyd, Commissioner Zimmerman,
Nature without us.
Brandon,
Gotham,
Hans, Inman,
Gotham.
and Morris. We, Gotham is our winner. We'll move on to our next one, which is, again, a solo entry in the youth category for historic landscape streetscapes and features. This is View of the Star.
Are there any comments about this entry?
It was really hard not to see a cat.
Yeah.
Like, I just saw a kitty and instantly was like, yes, and then I read the description, there was nothing about kitties. It's like, yeah, it's a really, really great photo, and I love it even more with one of the photo entries later.
I think it's funny how this like one branch is kind of like currently in the star shape. Something like that for a long time. If anybody doesn't know, this is the Willamette University Star Tree. And there's a myth on campus that if you have your first kiss under the star tree, then you'll get. It's very cute. I love this photo. And I definitely think we should.
Commissioner Inman?
Somebody, and I think it was just last week, took a whole lot of fallen camellia blossoms and did a giant heart on the middle of the star on the, on the dove of the floor of the star. It was just so sweet. It may have been one of those proposals or something. It was.
That's crazy. My daughters just did that in our yard, that made a heart with the flowers, and they're 3, so maybe they snuck out. Yeah.
Any other comments on the star trees?
Okay, am I the only person that doesn't see star? Like,
I don't see a star, I see a cat or a
okay,
fox.
great, yeah, I understand the purpose behind this, I'm all for like this giving this photo award to this person. And like, the person that was sitting under these trees and someone was like, look, I'll see a star. I'm like, I don't know, I see a bunch of branches and like a bunch of other things. So I wonder at some point, will any university is gonna like figure out in space, but anyway. It's a great photo nonetheless, no matter how many cats are in the picture.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, or should we just do do we need, this isn't a roll call one, this is just the, we just do all in favor, do we need a motion on this?
And formally a motion.
Okay, let's have a vote. Is there a motion, with this, star photo? Commissioner Inman?
I move that we award the youth landscape streetscape feature photo award to the star, View of the Star.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Potts. All those in favor of awarding the historic landscape streetscape feature youth to the View of the Star, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. All those opposed? Thank you.
And our final category, these are actually all tied equally. The reason that they are tied is Mr. Inman excused herself from voting in this category because her husband has submitted a photo. So every single one has 2 votes. So you have to decide. I can't lead you one way or the other. I will leave it to you.
All right, who wants to speak to the photos?
I just
Commissioner
got,
Kerman.
I just gotta say that the photo to the far right, it's a beautiful photo. And the kid in the foreground, you know, it's a fun looking photo, but the description is what got me, so I had to pick that photo. And as a reminder, the description was, this is the parent taking a photo of their daughter who took the photo of the star trees that we saw earlier. So it's like, oh my gosh, and just to see the person taking the photo, to be in the photo, yeah, it's magical.
Anybody else want to speak to that photo of their interest?
Okay, so let's talk about Forest at Englewood Park, and first of all, what a good boy that is. Second of all, I understand that at Englewood Park, in this picture of Englewood Park, like, I know that that's what that is because it's in my neighborhood, I go there all the time. But I also go there with my animals, you know, we spend time there, we do things there, and it is instantly recognizable to me. And and its use is one that goes beyond like an individual building or an individual person's home or life, you know. It's a place that is recognizable by many and, you know, was the elementary school committee as well. So regardless of how good those other boys are there on that porch, this Cooper right here just like stole my heart as soon as I saw it.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on the photos? Or should we just, you know, go down the list with a roll call on this one since we're so close? We can do a roll call. Oh, no, Commissioner Potts.
Just quick comment, you know, to the title again, category, portrait or animal. I think that has
All right, it sounds like everybody's commented who's wanted to speak to the photos. And we'll go ahead and do a roll call. I don't know what happens if there's a tie again, but Commissioner Strauss,
I'd like to vote for Forest at Englewood Park.
Commissioner Fuller,
Definitely Forest at Englewood Park.
Zimmerman, photography partner. Kerman,
Photography partner.
Potts,
Englewood.
Julian, are you abstaining?
I abstain.
Morse.
Photography partner.
Okay, we are 3 and 3. So it sounds like we might need to. Get her vote on this, but I don't know, how does that work?
You can award two.
We can award 2, if you'd like to, and you have the authority.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Kirkman.
I'd like to make a motion to award both the forest and the photography photos, since it's such a close time.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All right, Commissioner Fuller seconds, Commissioner Kerman's or vote to give 2 winners for this category, the Forest and Light Englewood Park and photography partner. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Abstain.
1 extension, thank you. And then I don't have a slide for this, but we do also award a chair's choice. So if you wanted to pick your favorite photo. Oh, man. Okay. From all 20.
Are you prepared?
Well, the photo I liked the best was the 100 years of class. That was already won. Boy, I don't know. I mean, that one, as soon as I saw it, I thought, man, that photo I just really liked. That one just spoke to me the most. I think I would have to go with that one again, just because I like that photo so much. And my interest in the fairgrounds and all of those things, that just kind of drew me in at that. It was so unique, and the fact that we don't see
really photos from the fairgrounds to this contest. It seems like our normal places are, the Capitol Tower, the Capitol, State Capitol, and then the railroad bridge downtown. So I was pleasantly surprised that we didn't have several railroad bridges this year. So the one with the poultry building at the fairgrounds definitely spoke to me the most of all the photos. So I have a hard time going away with that one just because I enjoyed that one the most, and just the historical look to it and the fact that I had spent a number of years working in that building's shadows.
Award, Chair's Choice to Colin for over 30 years. And that is all of the photos, so just thank you to everyone who submitted a photo, if you're watching. We'll get in touch with you very soon about awards, and the only other thing is we previously had talked about taking photos of the award winners and just confirming that we are doing it.
Yeah, that, you know, we could schedule that, yeah, I'm fine doing that.
I'll send out emails to her. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for your work on that, Zach, doing the heavy lifting of getting a hold of people and making sure that they turn in their, you know, forums and, you know, getting feedback and all of those kind of things. Thanks for making this happen.
Making sure commissioners vote.
Turn over to Kim for our next awards. I'm floating.
Do we need to? Just trying. Okay. All right, so you got this in your packet as well. So these are just my recommendations. So I'm going to go through these, beginning with. Chair award. So this is actually Andy's discretion, but you just saw him last month. So this is Carol Cottingham, who served as a member of the Landmarks Commission from 2018 to 2022, and he served as chair. So carried us through and also has really educated us about historic landscapes and cultural landscapes, even after you left the commission. So, and I'll turn it back over to you. So similar to the photo, I'll make a recommendation and then
Sure.
it's yours. So
Yeah, I mean, enjoyed working with Carol and found his interest in research, especially in Bush Park and the discussion of the landscape aspect of things. A nice addition to the commission, in addition to all of the work that he did as commissioner and as chair, and as he continues to assist us by providing information and helping us learn more about some of the historic landscapes throughout the community. I think he's you know, been a good resource for us to continue to go back to time and time again. And, you know, even though he's no longer sitting next to us up here during these commission meetings. I think it's nice to see folks who have been on this commission continuing to do good work regarding historical matters in this community after they leave us. And Carol is certainly one of those kind of people. And I definitely think you know, that is something to be recognized and appreciated. You know, just having that other asset out there that we can talk to, or that works with other groups to share that kind of information to folks that maybe aren't following the HLC as closely as they should, with just kind of community groups and things like that. I know he's active with his neighborhood community. I know he's still, doing a lot of community work in addition to, raising his family and working full time. And so, I think this is an apt award for Carol. Like I said, he was great to work with all the years that I've been able to spend on this commission. And I think it's really nice to see, people continuing to do the work, even though they don't have to come in every month for a meeting or to vote on any kind of things. They're still out there doing the things that they shared with us and researched for us, after they left their time at the commission. So I think this is a deserving person for this award.
You don't have to call for a vote, so.
Yeah.
All right, great. So now I have two options for the Ben Maxwell Award, and just so you know, you could award for both, or you could just pick one, whatever you wish. So, bit of background: in 2010, the Benjamin Maxwell Award was established by the Landmarks Commission to recognize an outstanding contributions to the preservation, restoration, or maintenance of Salem's historic built resources. So the first one I wanted to share, one of our commissioners is very familiar with. So it's the Justice Building, the rehabilitation that was completed on this building. I'm recommending because for those of you that were on the commission, DAS actually did come to Landmarks to get approval to complete the rehabilitation on this building, and they initially received approval to actually replace some key character defining features, including the terracotta cladding with GFRCM and the new term replicas, but they didn't need to do that, and so they were able to find creative ways to repair and retain all the existing historic materials. And some of you, I think, were able to go on the tour of all that crazy scaffolding during the project. So they just, I think, did an excellent job above and beyond. And the other one is Yaquina Hall, which you can see here the mayor doing the ribbon cutting, which was just recently, and we have a tour scheduled Monday, I think, at noon. And this has been a multi-year project, many years. Salem Housing Authority adapted a really excellent example of adaptive reuse for affordable housing in the city. And they went through many levels, coordinating the SHPO office. There was a federal nexus because of funding that was received, and they did a wonderful job. So those are the two options I'm presenting to you. Now turning it over to Andy.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. Do any commissioners have any favorites they want to speak to either of these nominees? Commissioner Strauss.
I would be definitely supportive of awarding both of these projects. I feel like these are both multi-year, very long-term projects that have been kind of in the process for a long time now. And so being able to recognize both of them, I think would be a great opportunity to sort of say, hey, we recognize this was a lot of work and you put extra effort into maintaining these either historic materials that we weren't sure about maintaining, or even this building itself, since we know that there were a lot of other buildings on the state hospital campus that got torn down. So very exciting to see that this building, which is really beautiful, is being maintained and used in a productive way.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak to these two?
I will also voice my admiration for this hall. Like anything that Salem is doing to create more affordable housing, adaptive reuse for its structures, taking the world of its former state hospital or, or Instant Asylum as it used to be called on Silent Avenue. And changing it into something that is more benefiting and befitting its community as it is now, I think is absolutely what we should be awarding as much as we can for, like things that are directly helping the community as we have it. Absolutely have my vote for this award.
Thank you. Any other commissioners want to speak to either or both of these nominees? Or should we call for a motion on this? Does anybody want to make a motion? Commissioner Inman?
I move that we award the Ben Maxwell Award to both the Justice Building Restoration Project and the Yakina Hall Adaptive Reuse Project.
Okay, Commissioner Strauss?
Second.
All right. We have a motion to award the Ben Maxwell Award to both nominees. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, thank you. Commissioner Potts? He's
I
gonna.
was gonna recuse myself.
Okay, all right. One abstention, Commissioner Potts. Thank you, everybody. All right, Kimberly?
So I know Kylie would kill me for having that. Kylie's watching, I know she probably. So I'm recommending the Virginia Green Award to be awarded to Kylie Pine. So this was an award, Virginia Green was just here and she spoke to you this evening. It was established in 2013 to recognize exemplary service on behalf of historic preservation by a human being in the Salem community. So if you already don't know Kylie, you should. She's the curator at the Willamette Heritage Center, but that seems a very limiting term to describe all the things that she does in the community. In particular, you can see several pictures of her in her boots. She was out on site every single day at our dig, not just this year, but last year, in all kinds of weather. And she's not even an archaeologist, so she was out there helping out. She's been helping ensure long-term access to the former SalemHistory.net online history pages, which used to be posted here. That's a really valuable resource that she's continuing to work to retain access for. And she's also helping with the larger project that I went over briefly in regards to our Methodist meeting house and Methodist missionary sites, and developing that historic context and doing that research so that we can build our interpretation and move forward with future projects. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you. Anybody want to comment on the recommendation for the Virginia Green Award? Mr. Strauss?
I'm very supportive of this recommendation. I think Kylie is a really amazing resource for our community, and she works really hard to make sure that people have access to the history of our community in a way that not a lot of other people can and do. So I'm very supportive and would love to see this award go to her.
Any other comments?
Huge yes. Yeah, Kylie has been so much fun and motivating and inspiring to work with at the archaeology site. I try to get creative on other ways that I would need to interact with Kylie more. So that says quite a bit, not just because she's a fun and positive person, but just her knowledge and again motivation and inspiration to dive deeper, and she just seems excited about every topic you bring up. So, yeah.
Anybody else want to speak? Mr. Fuller?
Yeah, I will also sing Kelly's praises. Like, she is a wonderful, wonderful human, and also an excellent person at what she does for her work. I've worked with Kylie professionally as a historian through this commission and through the state archives. I've also worked with Kylie as coming in as a private citizen, trying to help some of my friends get information on the history of their businesses in Salem and things like that. And she has been gone above and beyond the call every single time. She didn't have to help us in any of the ways that she did, and it's incredible. So yeah, she's absolutely deserving of the support.
Anybody else care to comment? I'll say a few words too. When I used to write a history column for the newspaper, for 5 years, I would work with Kylie or one of her assistants, Kaylin, and both were always as helpful as you could be. I'd say I'm working on doing research on this specific building or event, and they would always be more than willing to look through their files to see if there was any kind of photos that might go with it. They give me some suggestions about some different things that I might not have thought about. And so when I joined the commission, and we would have events like the Qingming Festival. Kylie's always been there, and she always gives a speech. I'd see her around town at other historical things. She's just so well versed in the community's history and so kind of deeply rooted about what's going on, and has such a passion for the history and wanting to share it with other people that maybe they don't know as much, or kind of like what Commissioner Fuller said, someone who's from the community asking questions and just has that willingness to help out and provide that information to others. I think she is absolutely worthy of this award. And I guess in a way, I'm kind of surprised she didn't get it already, because of all the stuff that she's done for us and just for the community at large, that she's been the curator over there at the Willamette Heritage Center. So I wholeheartedly support giving Kylie this award. All right. Should we, is there a nomination? Do we have okay, Commissioner Strauss?
I move to award the Virginia Green Award to Kylie Pine.
I second.
All right, we have Commissioner Strauss is moving to award the Virginia Green Award to Kylie Pine, and seconded by Commissioner Fuller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, thank you.
Okay, this is our last one. So the Cultural Landscape Award is our most recent award. It was established by the Landmarks Commission in 2020 to recognize work to identify, preserve, and interpret cultural landscapes, archaeological sites in the city of Salem. And I'm recommending the award go to Oregon Archaeological Society volunteers David Root, Ken McBain, Doug Reynolds, and Roy Bryan. Now, these are 3 OAS volunteers who have dedicated hundreds of volunteer hours to our various archaeological projects, beginning in 2020, but also in 2022 and 2023. And I literally couldn't do the excavations and the work that we've done on our sites without their help.
Thank you. Does anybody want to speak to the nomination?
Yeah, it seems silly for me not to speak to this, but I wholeheartedly agree with awarding this to these 4 folks, especially. They were out there all the time. They drove every day from Portland area down to Salem to dig in the mud and the rain and the wind, the cold, and put up with everyone's shenanigans, including my own. And they were phenomenal. I really, really look forward to working with them again. I was very excited to see the same faces out this year as last year. And when I showed up to the site, this is kind of the folks I look for. Like, oh, is so-and-so here? And oh, there's Kylie, and oh, yeah, there's Doug. So Kimberly really downplayed that there's no way the site would have operated the way it did without these folks, especially Penn, who was like the admin, the cat wrangler. So yeah, I very much support this. These are fantastic folks who are volunteering their time. They are not, you know, they are retired. They're not archaeologists by training. I mean, they're trained. They're not archaeologists in profession. And so they just bring a wealth of knowledge, but they don't put themselves on a pedestal. So they are very enjoyable to work with. And yeah, and a wonderful asset to have on site. And I really hope they continue to come out every summer.
Thank you. Any other commissioners, Commissioner Inman?
I serve on a committee with Boyd Bryan, and I have to say that he's living out an exemplary retirement. He's putting as much energy and enthusiasm into his interests, and this has become a very keen interest of his, and he schedules his life around it, and he's just very enthused, and I'm just so glad to see someone recognizing him for that.
All right, any other folks that want to speak? Commissioner Strauss?
Yeah, just really quickly, I want to recognize like how hard the archaeology work can be too, like digging holes in the rain. So just a big like support to the volunteers who go and do that for fun. So very supportive of this work, going to the volunteers of that project.
All right, do we have a motion to award the Cultural Landscape Award? Commissioner Inman?
Yes, I move that we award the Cultural Landscape Award to the nominees that have been presented on the slide here.
We have a second. All right, we have Commissioner Inman moving to award the Cultural Landscape Award to the Oregon Archaeological Society's David Root, Pat McBain, Doug Reynolds, and Roy Bryan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thanks everybody for the voting this year. It seemed like it went pretty smooth. I think our first one back in person made it go a lot easier than when we were doing it online for a few years. And so now we move to discussion items. And first on the list is the work plan assignment updates. And it looks like Zach might be okay. Kimberly, do you have who should be prodding here for the work plan?
Yeah, well, it's Historic Preservation Month, so I think that everyone did their collective jobs in terms of voting and especially the photos and your work tonight. I think in terms of the other things coming down the pike, I think that probably at our next meeting, I'll provide you a list for, you remember the work plan slide I showed, so it's crazy. I'll probably revisit that and remind folks what we are trying to accomplish this year. We have a lot on our plate. And I think there's some key things that I'm probably going to ask for more help on, but for now, I think, we're moving forward on certain things. I think unless you have special things that you want to discuss or work on, I'll come back next time to the list.
Just a small update from the survey committee. We're still working with the school, the Criterion School, to work on the local nomination. We had another meeting like a week or two ago with them. So I'm hoping that will come down in the next few months. So just a small update that we're still working on it.
I did have an update, so I'm going to pass this. So you'll note the picture that is on this. Who said it was a principal or professional? Was it president? Yeah. So this is a brochure, an updated brochure that we're working on with the Culture and Heritage Forum, an updated walking brochure. So it's very drafty, but I'll pass it around. So anyone wants to review it or review.
Are you looking for input or just to see? Okay. I'll refrain from calling.
Please don't use your red pen, you can send you.
This one is very rough, right?
Yeah.
All right, I guess we'll go to the newsletter check-in. Zach, what do we got?
We're just moving forward with our next issue, which will come out next month. It'll be after our meeting. It's our fair issue. I know that we already have some people signed up to do things. So Chris is gonna write about the poultry building. Brett wants to maybe write about the horse.
I was poking around, I think that I can. I was poking around, I think that I have good resources to do a general history of the fair and the fair's origins. That's something that we're interested in too. Cool, okay, great.
Commissioner Zimmerman is gonna write, I forget what it's called.
Freedom Train.
Thank you. Freedom Train, which came through and had an exhibit. I would love one more article if anyone is willing to contribute to that.
One of the neat things about the fairgrounds that I came across when I read the story years ago, and I've never found a photo of it, but I would love to see if one is out there. I might even have to bug Kylie again, which would be great if there is this photo. But when they opened the horse stadium, one of the first things that they had there was a car show on the outside of the, within the building, kind of like the concourse area. They brought in all of these cars of the day. And so I would just love to see a photo like that if there's one out there. Just because when you think of the horse stadium, you're thinking of animals on display, different events all the time. But one of the early things that they did was they brought in cars to show what was the latest and greatest at the time. You know, as they had opened this horse building on the fairgrounds. But, you know, I'll have to ask her, but yeah, I've looked for one of those photos and I hadn't found one when I looked in the past, you know, just would reference that they had all of these different, you know, top cars of the day in there, but there wasn't any photos that actually showed anything in the building, especially with newspapers at the time, not really, you know, publishing photos yet. But I'll bug Kylie about that to see if that might be something potentially we could add to the mix if one such exists.
We could do a photo article and just have interesting photos there. Interests. And I did forget, we will also have a brief article about the criteria clause provided by organizers of getting it listed on the register. So I think that's all we need, but if anyone wants to do more, Commissioner.
I have something I wanted to mention, I don't know where it might fit, but on June 3rd, there's going to be a riverfront carousel event, and I think they're going to rename it, and it will be named in honor of Hazel Patton, who started that whole project. So, and I don't know, there might be some good photographs or some little article about that. Maybe not in this issue, but in. So just, I just want to let everybody know that that will be coming up on June 3rd.
Could you remind me of the deadline?
It's the week of June 20th, but the Monday is a holiday, so just any time during that week. My hope is to get it out on Friday, but if not, it'll be the following.
Also, can I ask a favor to send me the stuff that is in the local resource file for the poultry building? If there is anything in there, I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Sounds like we're good. We probably don't need anything more. We're probably bursting at the seams.
I wouldn't say that, but we are good. The only thing that otherwise would be to think of a fall, if there's something that you'd like to write about. Typically in our summer theme issue, we do subjects of the photo contest, so we could just push that to fall if no one else thinks of a theme. But if you have something you'd like to write about for the fall, let me know and we'll start planning that one too. That will be in September.
Thanks, Zach. All right, the Historic Preservation Officer report, Kimberly.
So I have an event to share, and guess who, it's Coyote again. So, this year, and she's hoping it'll be an annual tradition, for Juneteenth, which this year is, I think this walk is gonna be on June 19th at 10 a.m. So she's been working with, the Oregon Black Pioneers to do a freedom walk, in freedom's footsteps, focusing on, she's focusing on one family, but wanting to do different families every year. So this year, it's the Bayless, the Albert and Marianne Bayless and their family and friends. So the walk is going to start at the Willamette Heritage Center. It's about a little over a mile loop. And they're going to go to the first stop, which is the site of their home. And it'll return back to the museum. So it'll include, of course, Coyote giving some wonderful interpretation. And I think Zachary, what's his last name? The executive, yes, Stocks. Yeah, they'll be there too. So and the local chapter of the NAACP is also participating as well. So that will be next month. And then this morning, thank you for sharing the flyer. I went to the spring fair that LCIS was putting on. LCIS, for those of you that don't know, the Legislative Commission on Indian Services. So it was really cool. I was there for a couple of hours. They had tables out with all the different tribes sharing educational information. And then they had actually a number of speakers, and they had music and drums. They had a flag ceremony where they have all 9 tribes walk in tribal flags, and it was really meaningful. This first time they've had it outside. I think they typically restrict it to just tribal members. This year they opened it up to the public, and they're wanting to do that again. And they also had food, lots of food. So I want to say that I did meet the tribal vice chairperson from Warm Springs, and they have invited our mayor and any council representatives who are interested in coming out to the Warm Springs reservation. They're interested in pursuing an MOU with the city of Salem in a similar way to what we already have. So, I also talked with Patrick Flanagan about that stuff.
Yeah, and apologies for the late notice on that. That was this morning. So, but like Kimberly said, this event is usually restricted to tribes, and so this first year really opening it up to the public, and it was kind of a not last minute, but a later decision, and so I wasn't able to go because I had to monitor out in a farm field, as I do, go stand in a farm field, and but I'm glad to hear it's such a success. So I'll keep an eye out for it next year. Let the commission know ahead of time, especially for council member meetings. So yeah, thank you for distributing the flyer anyways.
Can I ask a question? Going back to the Freedom Walk, is the house still intact?
It's a site.
Just a site?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's a site, but that doesn't mean we can't designate it. Yeah.
I feel like maybe identifying some.
An interpretive panel.
We love interpretive panels. Identifying some spaces where early Black pioneers lived in Salem would be a great thing to do for us. So.
Add it to our work.
Just a quick reminder, Kim mentioned this, but we do have a tour of Youth in the Hall scheduled for Monday at noon. If you can let me know if you plan on going, hopefully tomorrow, so that we know how many people to expect and we don't start the tour without someone who can do it.
I plan to attend. Is it, I guess, I feel like some of my coworkers may be interested in going, and I don't know if that would be an appropriate thing to offer.
I did ask, the staff there, and they said that that would be fine if you'd like, a discussion of the commission.
Throw it out there. I don't know, it might be too last minute, so.
Thank you, Kimberly, for the update there. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to say something of a personal matter. As you know, I've missed the past couple of months, and those are the first times I've missed since I've been on the commission. I've enjoyed working on the commission and learning about different aspects of Salem history and kind of all the different strengths everybody brings to this commission that makes it as well-rounded and as a positive strength in this community as it is. But I found out a couple of months ago, kind of surprisingly, that I have cancer. I've started treatment about a month ago, and I'm feeling pretty good. And my hope is to continue to do as much with this commission as I can going forward. I likely will have a stem cell transplant later this year, so that's gonna take me away from my normal things, you know, work, you know, family, my enjoyment in participating in the commission, at least face to face for a little bit of time. But I just wanted to share that because I find the work here is important that we all volunteer to do, and on nights like this where we're here for 2.5 hours on a Thursday night, going through a lot of things, and all of them have value and importance to, you know, the work that we do and the city does. But I just wanted to share this news, and I plan on doing as much as I can with the commission as long as I can going forward, because I do think this work is really important, and I do appreciate everybody putting in their time, you know, in addition to everything else that they have going on in their lives to make this commission hum and to really be of value to the community and to the city. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to continue to contribute, even on times when I'm not going to be able to potentially be at a meeting. I still plan on doing things, you know, in the background that continue to move our efforts forward, you know, and letting people know how important the history of this community is to folks who live here now and hopefully the future generations. And we can, you know, provide a light, kind of shine a light on some of the good works of this community and the efforts of folks to preserve the history of our town. Yeah, I just wanted to share that information, and that's why I haven't been here. And not that I didn't want to participate over the past couple of months, but I had treatment and tests, and of course all that stuff falls like on a Thursday afternoon where, you know, it's like, oh, I don't think I could be sitting upright for too long to participate. And I definitely want to thank Jennifer for you know, filling in. You know, I know that's not her favorite thing to do, and I joked with her about that stuff before, you know, about such things, and she's a pro, and she's done a great job. So I want to thank her just publicly as well for the work that she did, kind of filling in for me for the past couple of months. But like I said, I plan on doing what I can, you know, going forward as much as I can, because like I said, I think we do important work here, and I'm proud to be associated with all of you doing this kind of work. But it's getting late, so I think we're all probably ready to get out of here for the evening. So thank you, everybody, for your work this evening. This meeting is adjourned.